This is an unprecedented war, where we don't know who the enemy is, nor what the enemy is. In the face of unknown fears, can humanity overcome an unknown disaster once again? Today I recommend a sci-fi movie, the beginning of the story of Hypnos. During a mission, a soldier's goggles captured a strange glowing object, which then rushed towards the soldier, causing him to fall to the ground and die. Paul is a senior engineer at the Defense Research Bureau. This time, he was brought to a military base. Previously, the goggles used by the soldiers were precisely the hyperspectral goggles he developed. Taylor is a CIA agent, and he tells Paul that in recent weeks, multiple bodies have been discovered, all with the same condition. As the soldier, their internal organs were completely frozen, while their skin was burned and corroded. The military cannot explain this, and locally, it is rumored to be the ghosts of war. Years of conflict have awakened these white phantoms. Taylor thinks it might be some kind of new stealth technology, but Paul does not agree. He decided to investigate personally. Paul installed a hyperspectral camera on the armored vehicle, and the convoy grandly entered the mission area. At this time, the city was shrouded in smoke, resembling a ruin. They arrived in front of a building, and the elite troops searched floor by floor. They saw multiple bodies, all appearing to have died from freezing. In an overturned bathtub, they found a surviving soldier. He was clearly terrified. The captain asked him about the other comrades. He said that everyone else was dead, and that they were attacked by a cold specter that burrowed into their skin, causing instant death. The panicked soldier was unable to respond, so they had to continue their search. A team of soldiers went upstairs, and the scene before them was horrifying. They found multiple soldiers' bodies, yet there were no signs of a firefight. As they continued to monitor, the people in front of the screen finally saw the ghostly apparition. The captain immediately ordered the soldiers to open fire, but the bullets passed right through it. The ghostly soldiers were also pierced by the specter, falling to the ground, dead. Their comrades wanted to rescue them, but the white specter targeted them first, moving like the wind among the soldiers. Each soldier it collided with fell to the ground, and no bullet could stop it. The soldiers suffered heavy casualties, and seeing the situation worsen, the captain had no choice but to order a retreat. However, the specter seemed unwilling to stop its slaughter, and the retreating soldiers became lambs to the slaughter. This is an unprecedented war, where we don't know who the enemy is, nor what the enemy is. In the face of unknown fears, can humanity overcome an unknown disaster once again? Paul captured a bizarre figure with human-like features, yet ghostly in nature, using a hyperspectral camera. Before even seeing the image, he angrily picked up a rocket launcher and fired at the phantom. But as the smoke cleared, the ghostly figure reappeared. This swiftly moving entity instantly killed the captain. The survivors could only quickly board the armored vehicle and speed away from the scene. However, on the way back to the base, the vehicle ran over a landmine and was blown over, forcing the group to escape from the armored vehicle. Paul removed the hyperspectral camera and, along with the soldiers, took refuge in an abandoned factory. He set up the hyperspectral camera on the top floor, and through the camera's screen, they were astonished to discover a circle of iron filings on the ground outside the factory. This formed a barrier. As soon as the phantoms came into contact with the iron filings, they would find it difficult to move, and this barrier was deliberately set up. The major realized that there might be others in the factory, and they discovered a brother and sister in one of the rooms. From the sister, Taylor learned that the barrier was set up by their father, who was killed by the phantoms while laying down the iron filings. Paul found a strange piece of ceramic on it. There was also a map, which marked a nuclear power plant. At this point, the squad successfully established contact with the base, and the general would send a helicopter to pick them up. Since the helicopter couldn't land at the factory, they had to head to the square in front. To ensure everyone could safely reach the rescue point, Paul instructed the soldiers to make a large number of grenades filled with iron filings, and he modified the hyperspectral camera into a spotlight, allowing them to see the phantoms with the naked eye. However, before they could leave, they saw a large number of phantoms gathering in the building opposite and quickly flying towards them. The squad had no choice but to exit through the back door. A group of phantoms discovered them, and the soldiers quickly fired the iron-filled grenades. As expected, the iron filings restricted the phantoms. But when the group reached the rescue point, the hyperspectral spotlight in Paul's hand suddenly malfunctioned. Fortunately, the rescue team's tank arrived just in time, equipped with a hyperspectral spotlight, and immediately launched a fierce attack on the phantoms. The shelling shattered the building, but the phantoms were completely unaffected. They swooped in like drifting smoke, roaring like dragons. Wherever they went, soldiers fell like mown grass. A phantom suddenly charged at the tank, and after several attacks, the sturdy tank was heavily damaged, losing its combat capability, and the spotlight was also broken, with the squad on the verge of being wiped out. The rescue helicopter arrived just in time, and the phantoms lunged at the helicopter. Paul heavily pulled the belt filled with iron-filled cans. The powerful airflow blew the iron cans into the air, temporarily trapping the phantoms, allowing them to successfully escape. The group arrived at a civilian shelter. A little girl told Paul that her father once made ceramic containers at a nuclear power plant, and the phantoms originated from that nuclear power plant. Meanwhile, the general arrived at the shelter with the remaining supplies and soldiers. Seeing this situation, the soldiers became even more anxious and desperate. But Paul, standing to the side, finally figured out the true nature of the phantoms. This is an unprecedented war where we don't know who the enemy is, nor do we know what the enemy is. In the face of such fear, can humanity overcome an unknown disaster? Once again, it turns out that besides solid, liquid, and other states, there is another form that can be created, which is the condensed state. This state of matter is slowed down by iron and cannot pass through ceramics. But its temperature is extremely low, and humans will die upon contact. And because creating the condensed state requires enormous energy, that nuclear power plant is very likely the place where these phantoms are manufactured. Then, Paul tells everyone that a plasma gun can deal with them, and he can make one. Paul begins collecting various components and starts mass-producing plasma guns. They decide to storm the nuclear power plant. To eliminate the phantoms at their source, they take the last few helicopters to the nuclear power plant, which by now has almost become a ruin. For safety, they first set up a plasma cannon and aim it at a phantom to shoot. In the violent explosion, the phantom turns to ashes. The plasma guns indeed proved effective, which excited everyone. The soldiers also began to engage in battle with the phantoms. Under their cover, the second team quietly infiltrated the interior of the nuclear power plant. Paul and Taylor discovered a laboratory where all the staff had been killed, and there was a complete phantom production line. The equipment on the production line would scan humans and then print them out using the condensed state. The two continued to delve deeper. They saw that countless phantoms were still imprisoned in ceramic containers, some of which were already damaged. They noticed a controller and speculated that cutting off the power supply would eliminate all the phantoms. But at that moment, the escaping phantoms seemed to sense the danger, and all the phantoms gathered together, attacking the soldiers. Seeing this, the Major collected all the remaining batteries, set up the plasma guns again, and aimed at the frenzied phantoms ahead. The last shot was fired, and the terrifying recoil sent the Major flying. However, this shot not only failed to eliminate the phantoms, but also shattered the containers holding them, causing the phantoms to swarm out, making the situation even more dire. At this critical moment, Paul finally repaired the motor, leaped backward, and pulled down the lever, disconnecting all the connecting cables. The phantom suddenly came to a halt, along with the trailing wires, frozen in that moment. They floated in the air like shattered souls. Then they slowly turned into dust and smoke. Paul and Taylor arrived at another laboratory, and upon seeing the scene before them, they realized that the phantoms were not just as simple as being scanned and printed, but were controlled by these humans with remaining cells, who were caught between life and death, left with nothing but endless suffering. So they unplugged all the power cords, completely ending their suffering. Eventually, the survivors returned to the base, and the military took over the nuclear power plant. They attempted to rebuild everything there and apply the research results to military purposes. Paul realized that this would be the beginning of another war. He did not stay to continue the research on condensed matter, but chose to leave. The movie ends here. If you don't know what weapons will be used in the Third World War, you will definitely know that the weapons ultimately used in the Fourth World War will be the most primitive stones and sticks. We are not living in an era of peace, but in a peaceful country. War is ruthless, so let's all call for world peace together.